Everything changed the moment Belly finally chose. For 3 seasons, we've watched her heart pull in 2 directions, between the comfort of Jeremiah and the deep, complicated love she's always felt for Conrad. But in the finale of the summer, I Turned Pretty Season 3, the love triangle came to a close in a way that left fans both relieved and heartbroken. Why did Belly end up with Conrad? And what does that choice really mean for her journey? Let's break it down step by step. The finale wastes no time pulling us into the emotional storm. Belly has been at the center of one of TV's most heated love triangles, and throughout the season, the pressure kept building. We saw her torn between 2 brothers, Jeremiah, the one who always stood by her side with loyalty and laughter, and Conrad, the one who could never fully express his love until it was almost too late. This final episode was not just about who Belly chose. It was about how each of them finally revealed who they really were when it mattered most. One of the most striking moments came when Conrad finally lowered his walls. For most of the series, he was the distant one, pushing people away because of his grief, his fear, and his inability to say the words Belly needed to hear. But in the finale, we see a version of Conrad that feels raw, honest, and almost unrecognizable from the guarded boy we met in Season 1. His confession is not grand or overly dramatic, it's vulnerable. It's the kind of truth that only comes when you've almost lost everything. And this vulnerability is what pulls Belly back to him. It's reminding us that sometimes love is not about perfection, but about being real. Meanwhile, Jeremiah's side of the story plays out in a quieter but equally powerful way. He has always been the brother who wears his heart on his sleeve, and in the finale, we see the weight of Belly's choice hit him harder than anyone expected. But instead of lashing out, Jeremiah shows grace. He accepts that Belly's heart has always belonged to Conrad, even when she tried to convince herself otherwise. This acceptance is painful but also necessary. It frees him from chasing a love that was never truly his to hold. The finale also gives us small but meaningful callbacks to earlier seasons. The summer house, once a place of innocence and teenage crushes, becomes the stage for decisions that will shape their adult lives. The imagery of leaving behind those carefree summers and stepping into a more complicated, mature kind of love ties everything together. It's not just the end of a season, it feels like the end of an era. By the time the credits roll, it's clear that this wasn't simply a choice between 2 boys. It was Belly choosing the version of herself she wanted to grow into. With Conrad, she chooses not just passion but growth, forgiveness, and the possibility of lasting love. And with Jeremiah, she chooses to let go, even if it hurts, because holding on to something half-hearted would only cause more pain. The Season 3 finale leaves us with a sense of closure, but also with questions. Was this the right decision for Belly, or was it just the decision that felt inevitable? To answer that, we need to dig deeper into her emotional journey and what her choice really reveals about her character. Belly's story in Season 3 is not just about romance, it's about growing up. For 2 seasons, we watched her as the girl who floated between moments of infatuation and heartbreak, often unsure of who she was outside of the Fisher brothers. But the finale changes that. This time, Belly is not just reacting to love. She's making an active choice, and that decision marks the moment she finally steps into her own. Think back to the Belly we first met in Season 1. She was young, dreamy, almost living in a fantasy of what summer love should look like. Her heart was full of what-ifs, and maybe some days. She wanted Conrad to notice her. She wanted Jeremiah to keep her safe, and she wanted every summer to feel endless. But the Belly we see in the finale of Season 3 is different. She is no longer chasing validation, she is claiming her voice. The key to understanding Belly's growth lies in the small, quiet moments. Notice how in earlier seasons, her choices often came from fear of losing someone, fear of being left out, fear of breaking the fragile balance between the brothers. But now, she acts from a place of clarity. She doesn't choose Conrad because he's the boy she's always loved. She chooses him because she's grown enough to see that loving someone means accepting their flaws, their mistakes, and their scars. It's not about who gives her butterflies, it's about who makes her stronger. What makes this even more powerful is the way Belly redefines her idea of love. In the past, her feelings were wrapped up in a fairy tale version of summer romance bonfires. First kisses and whispered promises under the stars. But by the end of season 3, she sees love in a more grounded way. Love is not a perfect summer day. It's messy, hard, sometimes painful, but also deeply rewarding when you choose to stay, fight for it. This transformation also shows in how she interacts with Jeremiah. Instead of clinging to him out of guilt or comfort, she allows herself to let go with honesty. It's one of the hardest things she's ever done because Jeremiah has always represented safety. But safety, she learns, is not the same as fulfillment. Choosing Conrad is risky. It means stepping into uncertainty. But Belly realizes that's what real love demands. Belly's journey is, at its core, a coming-of-age story disguised as a love triangle. Each brother represented something different. Jeremiah represented ease, warmth, and the simplicity of being adored. Conrad represented challenge, growth, and the complexity of being truly known. By choosing Conrad, Belly is also choosing the version of herself who dares to grow beyond her comfort zone. And perhaps the most striking part of her growth is this. Belly no longer lives for the summer. She no longer needs those 3 months to define her life, her identity, or her happiness. For the first time, she carries her strength beyond Cousins Beach into a future where she writes her own story. The title of The Summer I Turned Pretty was never just about looks or first love. It was always about transformation. And in the season 3 finale, Belly completes that transformation. Conrad Fisher has always been the storm at the center of this story. From the very first summer, he was the boy who seemed untouchable, quiet, moody, and always just out of reach. But what looked like mystery was really a shield. Conrad built walls around himself so high that even the people who loved him most, his mother, his brother, Belly, couldn't break through. That's why his transformation in the season 3 finale feels so powerful. It's not just about winning Belly back, it's about Conrad finally choosing to let himself be seen. Grief has been the shadow following Conrad everywhere. Mother's illness shaped the way he carried himself, distant, almost as if he thought love was a luxury he wasn't allowed to have. Instead of leaning on others, he locked his feelings away, convincing himself that pushing people out would protect them from his pain. Belly felt the sting of that distance more than anyone, and it's what nearly cost him their relationship for good. But the finale cracks him open. For the first time, Conrad doesn't hide behind silence. He confesses, he admits, he risks. And that risk is everything. What makes Conrad's redemption arc unique is that it's not flashy. It doesn't win Belly over with grand gestures or dramatic speeches. Instead, his growth is shown through vulnerability. The boy who once walked away from her now stands still. The boy who used to bury his emotions now voices them, trembling and imperfect but real. And in that honesty, Belly sees the Conrad she has always loved, the one beneath the walls. Symbolism runs deep in Conrad's story. Throughout the series, summer has been his refuge and his prison. The beach house held his happiest memories, but it also chained him to grief and responsibility. By the finale, when Conrad finally chooses Belly openly, it feels like he's breaking free from that cycle. He is no longer the boy defined by loss. He is the man willing to fight for love despite it. His journey is less about romance and more about self-forgiveness. And that's why Belly's choice hits differently. She isn't choosing Conrad because he's always been the one. She's choosing him because he finally shows he is ready to be chosen. For years, Conrad was the boy who loved her silently, but let her slip away. In the finale, he becomes the man who can finally say, "I love you, and I'm not afraid anymore." This redemption doesn't erase his flaws. Conrad is still complicated, still imperfect, but that's what makes his growth believable. Redemption in The Summer I Turned Pretty isn't about perfection, it's about change. It's about Conrad learning that love is not about protecting people from pain, but about walking with them through it. And by taking that step with Belly, he redeems not just his relationship, but himself. For 3 seasons, the love triangle between Belly, Conrad, and Jeremiah has been the heartbeat of The Summer I Turned Pretty. It was never just about which brother will she choose. It was about identity, family, loyalty, and the complicated ways love can both connect and wound people. By the finale of Season 3, that triangle finally breaks him in that breaking. Each character is forced to face who they really are without the other two holding them in place. Jeremiah's role in this closure is heartbreaking, but necessary. He has always been the brother of light, warm, open, endlessly willing to give his heart even when it hurt. Unlike Conrad, Jeremiah never hid how he felt about Belly. He loved her out loud. And for a time it looked like that honesty would be enough to win her over. But love, as the finale proves, isn't about who shows up first or who loves the loudest. It's about the connection that endures, even in silence. Jeremiah realizes this truth the hard way. When Belly chooses Conrad, Jeremiah isn't just losing a girlfriend, he's losing a dream, a version of his life where love was simple and certain. Yet, the beauty of Jeremiah's closure lies in his grace. Instead of clinging, instead of turning bitter, he accepts. That acceptance doesn't make the pain disappear, but it shows a maturity that sets him apart. Jeremiah learns that love cannot be forced or indicted, has to be freely chosen. In letting Belly go, he frees himself to one day find a love that isn't tethered to comparison or compromise. For Belly, closing the triangle means finally breaking free of indecision. The back and forth, the confusion, the guilt, it all ends when she chooses. The love triangle was always a mirror for her internal struggle. Was she the girl who wanted to be adored, or the girl brave enough to love someone flawed by making her choice? Belly stops being defined by the pull between two brothers and starts being defined by her own clarity. And then there's Conrad. The closure of the triangle is his redemption too. For years he loved Belly in secret, but let fear hold him back. Jeremiah was always there, ready to step in. To speak the words Conrad couldn't, the triangle forced Conrad to confront his silence. When Belly chooses him in the end, it's not just because he is her first love, it's because he finally met her halfway. Narratively, the end of the love triangle is essential. A triangle by its nature is unstable. It creates tension, but it cannot last forever without breaking the characters. Jenny Han never intended for this to be a story where Belly ping-pongs endlessly between two brothers. It was always leading to this point. One brother stepping back, one stepping forward, and Belly standing in the middle, not as a girl torn in two, but as a woman ready to step into her future. And that's what makes this closure satisfying. Because everyone got what they wanted, they didn't, but because everyone grew. Jeremiah learned to let go. Conrad learned to hold on. And Belly learned to choose. The triangle is over, but the characters it shaped are finally free to write the next chapters of their lives without it. Asterisk at first glance. The Summer I Turned Pretty looks like a love story set against sunsets, bonfires, and beach houses. The deeper you go, the clearer it becomes that this story is about more than romance, it's about the seasons of growing up. The Season 3 finale brings that truth into focus, weaving together themes of love, loss, memory, and change to remind us why this series resonates so strongly with its audience. One of the most powerful themes is first love versus lasting love. Jeremiah represents the warmth of being wanted, the easy joy of someone who will always show up for you. Conrad, on the other hand, represents the difficulty of a deeper bond, the kind of love that tests you, frustrates you, but refuses to fade. Belly's journey through both brothers is a reflection of what many people experience growing up. First loves that feel magical, but temporary. And enduring loves that require patience, forgiveness, and risk. The finale makes a statement that lasting love may not always be easy, but it's the kind worth choosing. Another theme that rises in this finale is the courage to let go. Jeremiah letting go of Belly, Belly letting go of her fear, Conrad letting go of his silent siege. Character learns that sometimes love means surrender. This theme is woven into the very fabric of the show's setting. Summer itself is fleeting. No matter how magical, it always ends. And in the finale, the characters finally accept that truth. They cannot cling to an endless summer or an endless triangle. They must grow, even if it means leaving behind who they used to be. There's also the idea of coming of age through pain. The series doesn't sugarcoat the reality that growing up often feels like loss. Belly loses the innocence of her childhood summers. Conrad loses the safety of hiding behind his walls. Jeremiah loses the girl he thought would always be his. These losses hurt, but they also carve space for growth. In that sense, the finale isn't just romantic, it's existential. It's about facing the inevitability of change and choosing who you'll be on the other side. Perhaps the most subtle but profound theme is memory as transformation. The beach house, the boardwalk, the familiar rituals of summer, these aren't just settings. They're symbols of who the characters were. At each stage of their lives, by the end of season 3, those same places hold new meaning. Where once there were teenage crushes, now there are choices that will shape futures. The show suggests that places don't change, but people do. And when we return to the same places after growing, we see them differently. And finally, there is the theme hidden in the title itself. The Summer I Turned Pretty was never about beauty in a superficial sense. It was always about transformation. It's pretty meant becoming someone braver, wiser, and more honest. In the season 3 finale, Belly's decision marks the completion of that transformation. She is no longer the girl hoping someone else will define her summer. She is the woman who defines her own story. These themes, first love versus lasting love, letting go, pain is growth, memory is transformation, are why the finale hits so hard. It's not just about who Belly ends up with. It's about what we all must face. Growing up means choosing, losing, and learning that even the most MA's asterisk, the final moments of season 3, are quiet, but they echo louder than any argument, kiss, or confession that came before them. When Belly finally chooses Conrad, it's not staged as a fairy tale ending. There's no fireworks, no perfectly scripted declaration under the stars. Instead, the scene feels raw, almost understated on. That's exactly why it matters. The show isn't telling us that Belly and Conrad are perfect together. It's telling us that they're real, that real love doesn't always need a spotlight. The ending is also about resolution through vulnerability. Conrad has spent years hiding his feelings, letting his silence speak where words should have been. But here at last, he strips away the walls. He doesn't fight for Belly by outshining Jeremiah, nor does he beg for her forgiveness with grand gestures. Simply tells the truth that he has always loved her and he doesn't want to lose her again. For a character who once believed silence was safer than honesty, this is redemption in its purest form. For Belly, the decision is equally significant. This isn't the same girl who once chased after Conrad's attention like a fragile summer dream. By the finale, Belly chooses not from insecurity, but from clarity. She recognizes that love isn't about who makes her feel prettier or who loves her more obviously. It's about who sees her fully and pushes her to grow. In Conrad, she sees the kind of love that will challenge her, but also stand the test of time. The ending signals her shift from fantasy to reality, from teenage infatuation to a love she's willing to fight for, even if it's messy. Symbolically, the ending ties the series together. Summer, as we've seen, has always been a metaphor for fleeting innocence. But here summer doesn't just end, it transforms. Belly and Conrad's reunion isn't about recreating the innocence of past summers. It's about stepping forward into something new, even if the future is uncertain. The summer house, once a playground of crushes and heartbreak, becomes the stage for a deeper promise that love is not about holding on to the past, but about building something beyond it. The ending also honors Jenny Han's original vision. In the books, Belly and Conrad were always meant to find their way back to each other, but the journey was filled with detours, doubts, and heartbreak. The show mirrors that same bittersweet path, reminding us that love stories worth telling aren't about perfection, they're about persistence. Belly's choice reaffirms the message Han planted from the very beginning, that first love, when faced with time and truth, can still become lasting love. But the finale leaves us with more than just closure, it leaves us with questions for the future. Will Conrad and Belly's love hold strong beyond the glow of reconciliation? Can Jeremiah truly heal from being left behind? The ambiguity is intentional. The show isn't promising happily ever after. It's promising honesty. And honesty means that love, like summer, will always have storms, as well as sunshine. In the end, Belly choosing Conrad isn't just a romantic decision. It's a declaration of who she has become. She's no longer the girl defined by two brothers. She's the woman who finally knows her own heart. And that is the real ending of The Summer I Turned Pretty Season 3. Cal summers must end, but their lessons carry us into every season after.